Bill, good to see you again.
Good to be with you.
Last time I interviewed you, you were on a giant screen behind me, and now I get to see you in person.
Now I've been reduced to my proper size.
Your mortal flesh.
Yes.
So that was 2 years ago. As I recall, your tone was fairly suspicious and a little negative about where we are. We've had 2 years to make progress. The IRA has rolled out. That money is starting to flow. Like, how do you see the state of climate today compared to 2 years ago?
Well, so let's look at the biggest picture, and let me be, I mean, the biggest thing that's happened in the last 2 years is that it's gotten a hell of a lot hotter on this planet. We've had the steady ramp in temperatures has turned into a brutal spike. 2023 and 2024 have seen month after month after month of the hottest temperatures we've ever measured. The scientists are pretty clear that we've seen the hottest days on this Earth in the last 125,000 years. That's led to a just utter onslaught of storm and flood and fire. So in that sense, things are exceedingly grim, and I don't think there's any point trying to sugarcoat it. We're seeing heat waves now routinely across Asia that produce temperatures in the neighborhood of 120 degrees Fahrenheit in the biggest cities on Earth. So we're very near the point of unlivability for large sections of the planet. And while that's going on, in exactly the same time frame, we've also seen the final breakout of renewable energy in a way that we'd been anticipating for a long time, but really, I mean, June of 2023 was the month when we set this new all-time high temperature record on planet Earth, broken this year. June 2023 was also the month when human beings went past the 1 gigawatt a day of solar panels being installed around the Earth. The equivalent of a nuclear power plant's worth of solar panels every day. Half of that in China, but that leaves a fair amount for the rest of the Earth too. I think we're now down to the point where we're doing that about every 12 hours. The race is very, very definitely on. The IPCC has told us we have to cut emissions in half by 2030, which is 5 years and 4 months away. The IEA told us this last week that in order to have some chance of doing that, we'd need to about double the current rate at which we're installing renewables. It's clearly within the technical and financial ability of us to do it, but whether it's within the political ability of our institutions, I don't know. And November 5th will provide at least a little guidance on that, perhaps.
So one of the places where there is some political will to deploy this is California. You've written about what they've been able to do, the point that they're at. It was news to me that they had come so far.
Well, the numbers really are astonishing, Dan. I was just writing about this for the New Yorker. California's been doing a good job over the last 3 or 4 years of obviously installing lots of solar panels, and probably just as importantly, lots of batteries on the grid. And this is the year when it finally really, really shows up in the numbers. For the last 100 days, really since about 1st of March, almost every day California has, for long stretches of the day, supplied more than 100% of its electric needs from renewable energy, which means that at night when the sun goes down, batteries have become the biggest source of supply to the grid most nights. The real number there, the important number, is that year on year, from 2023 to 2024, California has dropped the amount of natural gas that it's using to generate electricity by about 29%. That's finally a big number. we finally have a number that's not nibbling around the edges, starting to show the peak, whatever. That's a big number. And among other things, it explains why the fossil fuel industry is investing so heavily in this year's election, trying desperately to get Donald Trump elected. They can do that math too, and they know that if that spreads outside California, and it's now spreading quickly into Texas, oil and gas are the ultimate marginal priced commodities. We begin to see drops like that happening very many places, and suddenly your reserves are worth a lot less than they were. So we're right at the cusp. But to me, the really even more impressive and beautiful thing is the degree to which this is suddenly happening in lots of other places. I just wrote a piece. I do this free newsletter every week called The Crucial Years that has a large circulation because it's free. I was doing some reporting last week. So here's the interesting story. Pakistan, earlier this year, the National Electric Authority started announcing that demand on the grid was down and down sharply, like 10%, which is a number we'd normally only see in a deep recession or something like COVID. But Pakistan's economy was continuing to grow. And those two things should not be possible. Well, it turns out, to the degree that anyone can tell what's happening, and we're kind of cobbling it together with like pictures off Google Earth and things like that, but basically what's happened is the flood of cheap Chinese solar panels has just allowed anybody in Pakistan who has a house, a business, a little mall, a factory, to just nail up their own solar panels. And it looks like the best guess is they've installed in the last 6 months solar power unconnected to the national grid that's equal to 30% of the size of the entire national grid built up over 100 years. They've managed to do a third of that in 6 months, just people working on their own. Solar panels have gotten so cheap. The same thing appears to be going on across large parts of Africa now. I was interviewing people in the south of Africa saying that South Africa, Lesotho, Eswatini, Mozambique, Madagascar, but also up into some of the big population countries further north are seeing the same kind of just rapid breakout of renewable energy. And truthfully, this is the only story that's big enough to really matter in terms of the climate. The effect, the effect of rapidly rising temperatures is so enormous, and the scale is so profound. And the only thing we've got in the time that we've got to do anything about it is cheap sun and cheap wind and cheap batteries. And if one envisioned a kind of policy response at a global level, it would be to flood the world with those things, to figure out whatever set of policy mechanisms and financial mechanisms and things. You could probably do worse than just run those Chinese factories round the clock and dump the panels on every wharf in the planet and just see what happens. But that is, in essence, what's starting to happen, and we'll find out if it's if we can. And a big part of whether we're able to make it work is whether we can continue to break the power of the fossil fuel industry. The most useful thing I've done since I've been in New York and I've been out doing all the usual stuff one does in Climate Week and doing things with Prince Harry and on and on and on. But the most useful thing was go down and help friends of mine get arrested outside Citibank yesterday. Citibank's the biggest funder of the fossil fuel industry. We've sent 1,000 people to jail there so far this summer in this kind of desperate effort to just what are you doing? the world scientists, the Secretary General of the UN, the Pope, everybody has said, stop doing this, but you won't. So, that's the place where we are right now.
So if the market, and it's amazing to see the cost of solar come down, it's lower here in the United States as well, but the rooftop solar industry in the US has had its problems. Why haven't we seen that same type of uptake in the United States?
Well, we have in Pakistan, the grid doesn't work, so your power is off a quarter of the time anyway, so you've got a strong incentive to do this. In Africa, you may well not have any connection to the grid at all. For us, since we don't take climate change really all that seriously, it remains a kind of luxury, not a necessity, to actually do the right thing here. Who knows exactly what will change that? There's yet another very large hurricane spinning in the Gulf as we speak today. Sooner or later, we're going to decide that our planet and our country and our own lives are really in peril. My guess is the place where that will really start to tell over the next couple of years for Americans is in insurance, and the increasing inability of the one commodity, insurance, that's at the absolute heart of everything we do in commerce. If you can't hedge risk, you can't do anything else. And we're increasingly can't hedge risk. Climate change is breaking the most useful of human technologies, the actuarial table, because it depends on the world working in the future more or less as it worked in the past. And if it doesn't, and it doesn't anymore, then there's really no way to price risk into systems. So
you should stick around.
That may be the thing that's going to give.
Good.
Good. That's important. I think that's actually one of the places where the friction is going to grow so large that it'll be difficult. But who knows? I mean, look, it's not even as if climate change is even an issue at all in our presidential election as we head towards November.
No, nobody wants to touch it. But it begs the question too that I've felt a little bit through Climate Week, which is like the world is, as you I think you have said, the world is on fire. But now we've got a land war in Asia, a land war in Europe. We've got the Middle East, which has multiple fronts that are open warfare. How do you keep climate change on the agenda and as a priority in this type of environment?
Well, as I say, I think Mother Nature will continue to do a reasonable job of reminding us what's going on. But who knows if we can? I mean, look, this is my one foray out of the purple states all fall. With Third Act, which we've organized in the last couple of years, where we have now 100,000 volunteers, people over the age of 60, working on climate and democracy. But I mean, in this election, we're talking some about climate change, but mostly we're talking about the fact that, this could quite easily be the last election we get to have. So the sort of scale of craziness and, in every part of our lives and political systems is such that it is difficult to stay focused on what's important. That is why it's such good news that we have passed this, that we're at the point where the cheapest, where the thing that we need to do is also the cheapest thing to do, and that puts, economic and political gravity working in the right direction. I don't think people have yet realized that. I think we still think about sun and wind and batteries as alternative energy, as if they were the kind of whole foods of energy. But we need to understand, and it'll help a lot if we understand that they're now the Costco of energy, that they're the cheap stuff available in bulk right away, and then get to it, do the work we need to do to make that a serious reality.
Yeah, and there is a way to do it on an individual home basis, whether it's a solar panel on your roof, or there are options for Americans. They just need to reach out and know.
Yes, true, but we're way past the point where we're going to solve this one heat pump, one Tesla at a time. The most important thing an individual can do is be less of an individual and join together with others to build movements big enough to push around, to change the basic political and economic ground rules here. And the sooner we do that, the better chance we have. So that's why we organize in the ways that we do.
Amen to that. And you've been doing it for a long time. Obviously, we didn't get to this point where alternative energy became so affordable by accident. A lot of work went into it, a lot of advocacy, and you've played a huge role in that. And I thank you so much for the work that you've done.
Thank you, and thank everybody for the work that everybody's doing. We'll see what we can get done. Another couple of years, we'll know whether we did it or not. So
that's right. It's a pass-fail test.
There you are.
All right, Bill McKibben, everybody.
Thank you.